the perk of starting first. Peace at any price?
Yeah, I think so, Colin. I think what we're seeing now is a demand which, during a wartime process, might seem unreasonable, but the reality is that before Putin moved to invade, Zelensky was even considering changing the constitution prior to this, and if it wasn't for perhaps some external influence from the US and the UK, may have moved to do so in order to de-escalate. So I think all these demands come at a time when, let's say, Russia is very unpopular in world opinion. It may be the only avenue for a peaceful resolution to the conflict.
Because if there isn't one, Lucy, then if this becomes a quagmire, if this is something that the Russian military can't extract itself from, and Putin does not want to raise the white flag, then we're stuck with this for years, and we could end up going down a road that starts to resemble the one that took us to Grozny.
Yeah, well, part of Boris Johnson's plan is to actually open doors to diplomacy, and I think obviously diplomacy is the way forward. Obviously, I think that Putin has already realised that he's on the losing leg here, considering he's the one to open up negotiations in the first place. Someone who was winning might not have been so readily available to do so. When it comes to how it is negotiated, of course, they cannot concede to any of the demands about land take of the Ukraine, because, as quite rightly Ben Wallace remarked many months ago, is that if Russia were to take parts of Ukraine, they wouldn't stop there. We already know that he's going to go full hog. He's already going to go and consider Moldova as a potential next place to sort of look into. We already know that there's an issue along Lithuania as well, and we're putting some troops up in Estonia. So we know it's not just the Ukraine. He's going to go further than that, and that's what an imperialist does. An imperialist tries to get as much land as possible. Originally, it was just a slow incremental grab of land. He annexed the Crimea back in 2014, and he has done this quite brashly, and we've spotted it. So there's no way that I think that he would stop at this.
Joseph, Max Hastings, venerable former war correspondent, former editor of the Daily Telegraph, author of goodness knows how many books on military history, going back to Vietnam, and a man who really knows his stuff, arguing in the Times today that there needs to be a serious conversation about a cessation of hostilities, negotiations, compromise, and a peace deal. He says it will stick in people's craws, but it has to be done. The problem is with peace talks is that both sides, when they're approaching, try and gain the upper hand, don't they? Because they know the peace talks are coming, and they make a last-ditch effort to get whatever they can in the bag.
Absolutely. I think there's 2 points to be made here. I think the first is that we can talk about Putin wanting to grab swathes of land and territory, but the reality is that he himself will have to consider where he's going into. If it's pro-Russian territory, as he would claim in Luhansk and the Donbass, it's more likely to be somewhere that is going to want, or at least seem to want, to be under Russian rule. If he tries to take other parts of the Ukraine, or indeed other nations, he's going to come up against the problem of taking over territories which are totally anti-Russia. So I don't think that is a totally smart move on his part. We can argue all day about whether he would actually do that. I just don't think so. I do not think that's the case. I think that peace is the only option. I mean, Thatcher spoke to Gorbachev for a reason, not because she liked him, but because strong leaders have to negotiate and have to find at all costs.
Joseph, he was rational. I mean, Thatcher talking to Gorbachev is one thing, but he was a rational actor. And there's a feeling that Putin just isn't.
Well, there's a feeling, but we don't really have time for feelings. We've got to really cut beyond that and look at the realistic rhetoric that when you escalate in terms of power, it always leads to conflict. when you de-escalate a situation, hopefully there can always be a peaceful solution, even if it means minor or even major compromise. I simply think that to say on the one hand we care about the lives of civilians in the Ukraine, but then on the other to continue with this bellicose rhetoric without trying to offer solutions is simply not the way forward. I think there is a precedent for this. I think we can use Cyprus as an example of where an agreement has been reached and peace has been kept, for many years now, which is now turned into a tourist destination. I think brokering a Minsk III style agreement where both sides could actually honour, the mandates they contain within, and there would be a level of constitutional obligation on the regions that are being discussed territorially, then I think that could lead to a peaceful solution. I think that's what the West should be focusing on.